Greetings from Columbia Business School Executive Education. My name is Lindsay Matula, and I'm here today with Miklos, Sarvary, and Sandra Matz for our webinar, an inside look into Columbia's Senior Executive Program. Before I introduce our faculty, I would like to go over a few quick logistics. A recording of this webinar will be sent to you. If you have any questions, please submit those in the Q&A box. And finally, please join us by following us on LinkedIn for the latest program news and webinar information. It's my pleasure to introduce our faculty, Miklos, Sarvary, and Sandra Matz, who are both professors here at Columbia Business School, teaching in our Executive Education Department. Miklos' research focuses on media and information marketing, and he has recent work on ad blocking, online marketplaces, and social media content building. He's taught in many roles in leadership, such as at INSEAD, Harvard, and Stanford, and has consulted for many major firms like IBM, Nokia, and McKinsey. Sandra is a professor and author of a book called Masterminds. She is a computational social scientist who explores how digital behavior reveals inner psychological traits, and she aims to help people and organizations use data more ethically and effectively. Welcome, Miklos and Sandra.
Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Thank you very much for having us, Lindsay.
Of course. So we're going to get into the presentation, which is Miklos and Sandra talking more about our new Columbia Senior Executive Program. I'm going to turn it over to Miklos to get us started, and we really look forward to hearing your thoughts on the program today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Welcome, everybody. It is wonderful thing to know that there are so many people interested in this program that we are launching next November. It's long overdue. We always wanted to have a senior executive program like this. And we thought that, this is an opportune time to do so because the world is changing. It's not even changing, I'd say it's shifting to a new regime, to a new world order. And we thought really this is the time when we have to do this launch. The program is 3 weeks. And in the 3 weeks, we break it down to 3 major parts. The first part is going to be really asking what are the big questions that should keep a senior executive up at night. And we are going to discuss the answers to these questions with the understanding that we may not provide you with all the answers, but at least we are going to give you the frameworks to think about them. And these are important questions like, what is the world's political economy going to look like in the next 10, 20 years? Where is technology taking us? What is the latest on climate change? We have been talking about climate change for 20 years now. Many people think that we have made great progress. Some think that we have not made enough. So, where do we draw the line? What are the important things, and how are they going to impact economies, and how they are going to impact companies going forward, company strategies? So we are looking at these big questions, and we have put together a fantastic faculty team to discuss them, all of them experts. In the second week, we would like to take you away from the world's issues, and we would like you to focus on yourselves. You have been managers for decades now, and the question is, what should be your next goal, your next step? Let's take stock of where you are, and so we are going to give you space to discover that. And in the third week, we are going to pull all this material together, and we are going to try to teach you a couple of techniques, a couple of more down-to-earth things, so that when you go back after these reflections, you can actually put some of the learnings to work right away. So some things that are really practical and in touch with today's reality. This is not a program only about dreaming. There's some of that, but it's about doing. Our role with Sandra is to design the program. We are not the only faculty members teaching in it, of course. In fact, we have invited a fantastic team of people all experts in their areas. And we tried to very carefully design the program, giving them guidelines, but also relying on their creativity to be able to deliver something that is unique. I would like to say one more word about the program, which takes place in New York City. We want this program to be different from other senior executive programs. You may notice that if you have searched, for other business schools, is that this program is a bit shorter. It is going to take place in New York City. That is a punchy place. That is a very dynamic place. So much so that, in fact, for your own, when we are thinking about your reflection about your own life, we are going to take you away from New York City to the Hamptons to give you a little bit of space and sort of isolate you from kind of like the buzzy environment of New York. So our role is one of design. I am more in charge of bringing together the faculty team and the thinking about the big topics that we should be covering. And Sandra's role is more about thinking about your perspective, how you are going to be experiencing this program. So let me actually give the word to her so that she can tell you what to expect.
Thank you so much for handing over, Miklos. I think Miklos already said it. It's really nice to see that there's so much interest and so much demand to just learn a little bit more about the program. And at least from my end, I think the last couple of months designing it, thinking through what is the program going to look like, what is it that you're going to get out of it as a participant has just been immensely rewarding and exciting. So my role in this program is really thinking through this from your perspective and trying to maximize the utility, the value that you get from this program, given that what we're asking for is actually a pretty big ask, right? We're asking you to step out of your busy day-to-day jobs, come to New York, and spend 3 weeks with us and your cohort mates discussing not just like these big shifts that Miklos was alluding to in terms of geopolitical changes, like the introduction of AI, so thinking about what happens in the world, but also really thinking about your next steps in terms of your career. So thinking about what is it that you want for yourself for the next 5-10 years, where do you see your companies going, and how do you take on this this leadership role that really kind of gets you to the highest level of C-suite senior executives. And it's a group that I'm talking to a lot. That's both as a member of a board, like consulting work, people coming through Columbia. And one of the complaints that I always hear from those people is that I can't take 3 weeks out of my busy schedule to go through a program like that, but I'd really, really love to do it. So I think if you're the type of person that we're aiming for with this program, you probably have the same feeling of it's going to be a huge challenge to clear my calendar for 3 weeks. But also, if I think about the opportunity to do that, it's something that might seem very appealing. And in a way, the fact that we're taking you out of your day-to-day grind and we're putting you into an environment that's designed to make you both learn something about the world out there that is shifting, but also something about the world inside of like, where do you want to be, is exactly the point of the program. And when I talk to executives, the argument that I typically make is if you don't make the time for that, nobody else will. Right? We kind of fully understand that your calendars are exploding. You're probably working day and night. But the big question that we're hoping to answer in the program, and that I hear executives ask all the time, is, are the hours and the heartblood and the energy that I'm spending on solving the problems that I'm currently solving, kind of really giving my all to the jobs that you occupy, is that what I really want? Is that really what I want for both my company, the direction that we're going in, given everything that's happening in the world and your own values as a leader, and also for yourself? Like, am I putting in all of this time and effort and investment into a career that is fulfilling? So this idea that we're kind of taking you out of this kind of day-to-day grind, and we're giving you 3 weeks to both breathe to exchange notes with like the world leading experts in the domains of climate change, AI, finance, you name it, but also with your cohort mates who might be going or kind of grappling with similar questions, I think is one of the most valuable experiences that you can have. And if you don't make the time, nobody else will. So as we think about this experience that we're crafting for you, that's really what's at the back of our minds constantly, is understanding that it's a big ask. How do we make it such that it's really delivering on giving you a clear understanding of when you come back, like how do you now use this knowledge and this insight into your strengths, how you're impacting team members and so on, and how do you use it to work towards this goal and make the most of your time? So the way that Miklos already described, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want to make sure we have enough time for the Q&A, is we really think about these the program in these three big buckets. The first one is looking, I think of it as looking outward. So it's like a very much of a macro view of the world. And I think of it as knowledge, right? So if you're stepping into like the very top level senior executive positions, you need to fully understand what is going to be coming your way within the next 5-10 years when it comes to geopolitical changes, AI, climate change, the demographic shifts, the big topics. So we're giving you this expertise looking outward in the first week, and then we're kind of shifting gears entirely to really focus inward. So we're going to take you out of busy New York, and we're all going to go to the Hamptons, where we have really a top-notch team of executive coaches that will go through you with you through questions of, like, what is it that I'm really trying to accomplish? What is the types of values that I hold as a leader that I want to take back into my organizations? How am I impacting the people around me with the types of leadership styles, preferences that I have? So it's really very much focused on helping you take this next step in your career, which really requires you to lead organizations from your own value system and with your own kind of leadership style. And then we're going to come back. So with this kind of new understanding of where you want to be and your values, we're going to come back and we bring it back to New York for these like very tangible, okay, now that you have an understanding of here's what the world looks like and here's what you might be able to expect in the next 5-10 years, here's how you want to show up in that world as a leader. What are the concrete next steps that you can take to reconcile the two, right? And to, again, find the next stages in your career that you want to take, and this vision and mission for your company that allows you to navigate this uncertain future with the integrity as a leader that you probably have in mind for yourself. So that's really from, if I think about this from the perspective of participants, what you're going to get is not just this knowledge exchange from like really world-class leaders in that space, but it's also this exchange with coaches, including 360s and the conversations within the cohort. So this is a cohort that is probably going to be staying with you for the next coming decade. So every senior executive that I've spoken to who's gone through one of these programs, I think the number one, besides the faculty that they meet, is really cohort mates. Because when things get difficult and the top gets very lonely, those are the people that you can come back to and draw and ask for advice. So I'm going to stop here to make sure that we have enough time for the Q&A, but it's really the thinking behind it when it comes to us trying to figure out how we make the most of this program for you.
Great. Sandra and Miklos, thank you so much for giving everyone an overview of the program. I would like to start off by asking a couple of questions. And then for anybody who has questions specifically about the program on topics that weren't covered, please drop those in the Q&A so that we can get to those in the last couple of minutes here of the presentation. But most importantly, it would be helpful to understand a little bit more from your perspectives about who the program is really targeted and designed for.
All right, should I take a stab at it? So we are really looking at senior executives, people, like think about people who have been managing people whose jobs they cannot do. I think that is a good criteria. You know, like in the typical management transitions, there are a couple of really big management transitions throughout your careers. The first one is obviously you become a leader and you have a small team, but you can probably do everybody's job better, and that's why you became the leader. At the next step, as you are promoted, you are less and less in touch with the actual daily work of the people you are managing, but you still have to create a lot of value to them. So at the general management level, you're running a business, and there's a lot of people that you have no idea really what they are doing at their desk. Of course, you understand how do they create value, but you cannot step in their roles like in a minute. And that is exactly the level that we are targeting, because then the next really difficult step when you become a C-suite corporate level executive is that there is a whole new entity that you will have to interact with, namely the board or the shareholders or the stakeholders, more broadly speaking, and that is really a qualitative leap in terms of what is your role, how do you mediate between like the shareholders, the stakeholders, and the employees and the entire company. So this program is really targeted to people who are about to make this leap, and who are, as Sandra said it really well, are trying to kind of like redefine the next 10, 20 years of their careers. That has been going well, but it needs a qualitative shift in order to stay productive, and not just do the same thing that has worked so far, but actually up the game. So I hope I have touched on all these points. Maybe Sandra, you can add something to this, but that is the basic idea.
Yeah, I also think like essentially the people who are tasked with redefining what the next 5-10 years of the company are going to look like, right? So I usually think of, as you climb through organizational hierarchies, you turn into a manager. So again, it's not just your performance, it's not just you, but it's how well do you manage the people around you. And then at some point, there's this qualitative step to leadership where the marching orders have to come from you. And that's essentially the C-suite, that's the more experienced leaders that we're looking for. In this case, that can also happen at slightly lower levels where essentially kind of stepping into the leadership role, but it's really the people who, given everything that's going on in the world, right? Kind of, we talked about all of these macroeconomic changes, you have to be the people who have to make the decision. So I think those are the people that we're targeting. And I said it earlier jokingly, I think that the type of person that we're looking for is the type of person who feels I can't possibly take out 3 weeks from my busy schedule because otherwise the company is going to collapse. But it's also the people who think that they would actually get the most value from doing so, because they have to make the big decisions, right? The big decisions of, do you use AI? How do you navigate climate change? What are the core values of integrity, whatever it is that we want to put forward as a company? So it's probably the hardest for you, but it's also the most needed and the most valuable.
Great. Thank you both for your insight there. I saw this question come up a couple of times, and we also have somebody, Mohammed, who just asked, what are some of the tangible outcomes I can expect from the program? I leave the program, I learn the material, now what?
So there are a couple of things. I think that the first week is going to focus on a couple of frameworks that will allow you to integrate the changes that are to come in the next 10 years. We are not magicians. We have a hard time forecasting exactly what is in store for us from the creative politicians that are surrounding all of us in the world. But I think that what we will have to do is to give you some frameworks that allow you to interpret what is the impact of certain actions, of certain structural changes in the world. These changes are going to come along at a steady state at you, a steady rate at you, and you will have to have some framework to analyze this. So to really the first week focuses on these frameworks. The second week is really going to be focusing on you, as we mentioned. And here, there are two things. One, Sandra has mentioned that you need to sort of like take a step back and understand, who you are, not just how you feel about it, but also what is your impact on your environment. And as we get older and as you move up the management scale, there's less and less really honest feedback on that. So one of the things that we would like to create in this second week is to provide you a very safe environment to get deep feedback about how you're being perceived by other people, your peers, but also people who are not your peers, who are like, evaluating you. And I think this is a very, very valuable experience. And again, this is something, as Sandra mentioned, you have to take time off. The only way to really get this knowledge, this understanding of yourself, is to take time off and have the space and time to reflect. So that is really what the focus of the second week is. And then on the third week, we really would like to teach you stuff. We would like to teach you tools and strategies and tactiques and ideas that we have seen deployed in companies all over the world that are responding to the current crisis, whatever crisis that is, be it technological crisis, be it geopolitical crisis, be it economic crisis. And we would like to sort of like tie back to the first week's problems and provide you with a couple of tangible tools. So when Monday morning, the next week, you go back and people ask you like, what should I do? You're not just going to be talking about like, frameworks, but you're going to be talking about concrete ideas. And so it's very much our goal to give you some tools as well.
And I think it's a great question, right? Because you have to both justify it to yourself, potentially to your family, to your employer. So thinking through what are you going to get out, I think is the most important one. And the way that I think about this a little bit is, and Miklos was alluding to it. So for me, the big one in the first week is, we're going to give you a bunch of knowledge on here's what we think is happening. For me, one of the big lessons that I think we're going to communicate in the first one is here's all of the uncertainties that you'll have to deal with, right? And we don't have the answers to all of these uncertainties. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with climate change, with geopolitics. We can lay out the land of saying, here's all of the uncertainties that you'll have to think about. And then we can give you a framework to say, okay, based on our understanding of the uncertainties, you'll have to put in some of the work to figure out how they might be impacting your industry, your business. And that's oftentimes what happens in this last week, where we dive in, like Billy, a lot more concrete when it comes to, well, what does it mean for the business of AI? What does it mean for your company? Very specifically, what does it look like currently? What does it look like in terms of governance structures of your company? Do you kind of have to pivot to something that is more, makes it easier for you to respond to some of these uncertainties? So for me, it's really just dealing with, here's the lay of the land of things that we don't have full control over and we don't know, and giving you the tools to navigate that. And the second week of like looking inside is really a way for you to lead this change and come up with these concrete tools, given your own leadership style and the self-insights that you're going to draw. Because in a way, the values that you bring to the table, many of which you might not even be consciously aware of, right? Because that's essentially how human nature works. A lot of it happens underneath the surface, but it's still coloring all of the decisions that you are going to make in that world of uncertainty. So in addition to these frameworks and the self-insights, there's also going to be very specific tools in terms of, here's some strategies for persuasion if you want to craft a narrative for the vision that you have, both internally and externally. Here's what the current landscape of AI looks like in terms of the major players that might be impacting your industries. So this is like a little bit how I think about kind of helping you both with the abstract, but also extremely concrete and tangible.
May I say something, Lindsay? Because I think it comes up a lot, like how do you justify this to your companies? And I don't think this should be an issue. I think the value proposition to your companies is that they are going to get somebody who is way more productive than he or she has been before. This is like, they should think about this as an investment in you. And that justifies the time and that justifies the expense. And these kind of investments are important. Again, not only you are going to take on a qualitatively different job, moving from general management to the C-suite, but also you are hard workers. You are spending a lot of time in the office, and You want to be productive. And what this program what the goal of this program is to make you way more productive than you have been before.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that that makes a lot of sense. And that's a really important takeaway. I think one question that came through is from Ionella, and she said, what authors or books are the mentioned frameworks based on? But I think moreover, it would be very interesting to hear about the frameworks from the faculty. So we have an impressive faculty lineup for this program, and maybe we can spend a couple of minutes talking about how they were selected and how the curriculum was designed based on the research and information that we hold at Columbia Business School.
Yes. So yes, this was mostly my job. I mean, yeah, just as you mentioned, we have an embarrassment of choice here for faculty members, but we had to carefully build a team to look for people who have the gravitas of research behind them. So who have had enough experience to research these questions, but also who have experience with executives. Executives don't learn the same way as some of our younger students. And we wanted to make sure that rather than being sort of like a traditional learning experience, this is more of a journey, more of an exchange, where like we are also showing you what you know already, maybe instinctively, and we tie back to some of your perspectives. So I had to find people who are not just, excellent researchers and and command their subject extremely well, but also who have got the sort of like the pedagogical experience to interact with senior executives. And this really are were the two things that have been kind of moving my design. So we are looking at people at the intersection of these two important things.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to say that it's not just faculty. So whenever we think that there is an outside expert from industry that could speak to a specific topic that we really care about, and we want this outside expertise, we essentially bring in the best person that is out there. And I wouldn't get too anchored on specific frameworks. So there are certainly frameworks that we're following. So the entire 3-week block of we focusing outside and kind of inward, and then we kind of go into tangible actions. It's very much based on a framework on foresight. Is like, how do you project into a future, understanding the drivers of that future, and then kind of thinking about what are all the possible futures? What is the future that you want to get to? And that's where we kind of, again, bring it back to your own personal values. And then how do you work your way back from this future that you want to get to in terms of concrete actions and strategy? So we kind of base the entire program onto established and validated frameworks. And then obviously within each of the sections, there might be frameworks that come up. That the important point for me here, and I think Miklos said it very nicely already, is that they're all based in science. And I think that's one of the big distinguishing factors is you could get frameworks that gurus come up with based on their personal experience, and maybe they work for those gurus, but they certainly don't work for everyone. So everything that we do in terms of teaching you about strategy, about AI, about climate change, whatever it is, it always comes back to what do we know, both based on years of experience working with senior executives, but also based on the latest cutting edge science that says, if you're trying to solve this problem, here's the best way to go about it. So this is like how I would think about it, not just in terms of specific frameworks, but this really grounding in science and experience with senior executives.
Great. We do have another question that just came in, and it says, what professional background do participants usually have? So we covered the target, but I'm assuming this person means more about industry. It would be interesting to hear your perspective on some of the different types of participants that you see in the classroom for a program like this.
Okay, so this is actually a very good very good question, because when you think about a senior executive program, you're thinking about large companies sending like senior executives, but from multiple industries, and we definitely would like to have participants from all industries. This is not a program that is focusing on any particular industry, but moreover, we have been looking for participants who are not traditional in this sense. So I'm looking, like to invite a person who is a serial entrepreneur. He has already created a $1 billion worth company, and is actually at this stage trying to launch a new one with similar ambitions. So it's a very untraditional, non-corporate type of guy. I have been looking at a person who is more in the public sector, who is trying to figure out what should be Europe's strategy to stimulate industry. Okay, and this is a very, very difficult question. So this person has been working for a large corporation, but then moved on to the public sphere. So we are trying to capture as diverse of a senior executive, like participants group as possible. And this diversity is part of the objective and the appeal of the program, we believe.
Yeah, I think we're essentially fortunate enough to be able to curate the cohort, right? So what we're hoping for, again, coming back to your experience in the program, is to get to hear from as many different perspectives as possible, all grappling with similar questions when it comes to leadership, how to navigate the next 10, 15 years, but really from a pretty diverse set of backgrounds. So I know that we're at time. Maybe handing it back to.
Yeah, we are at time. I would like to add just one question at the end, if you guys don't mind staying for a couple more minutes, which is for someone, you touched on this and how it's obviously a program that you have to make time for, but for someone who is curious about the program but unsure at this time, what advice would you give them, whether if it's the right time to take the program?
I mean, this is a pretty personal question, to be honest with you. But I think that if you are thinking about the next stage of your career development, so you're a senior executive, and you have nagging thoughts about, do I want to do the same thing that I have been doing in the last 20 years, or do I want to have a quantum leap in my impact as a leader? That is the time to take it, and as fast as you can. The sooner you invest in this productivity leap, the more time you are going to have to enjoy the fruits of learning from a program like this.
Yeah, and I think it's essentially the question, like, for people, do you want to pivot? Right? Do you want to pivot into a different career, a different role? Is there something that you're trying to figure out for yourself? That could be helpful. But also, just, are you looking for a network, an expertise that you can bring back to your company to make the case for promotion to the next level, and really kind of the top level, just much more appealing and much more likely?
Great. Thank you both so much for your time today. And thank you for everyone who is on the call. I did see a question, if this was recorded, and it will be sent to you. On behalf of Columbia Business School Executive Education, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. The Columbia Senior Executive Program takes place this November 3 to 21 in person in New York City. Please be on the lookout for more information in your email. And on behalf of us, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.